Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast. With your hosts, Ashley and Michael, please sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast presented by the Undroppables. I am your host, Ashley. This is my lovely co-host, Michael Duncan. How are you tonight?
So I was tweeting that we were live, and as I was coming back to this tab, Twitter, the first thing on there was a poster of a movie, and it's Avengers: Age of Downey, and it's every part played by Robert Downey Jr.
Yes.
And it made me chuckle as the show was starting.
I love that.
Obviously, front and center, you've got Black Panther, Robert Downey Jr., which is always a good one. But yeah, but Scarlet Witch in particular is funny because she's standing right next to a Black Widow, and like they're both Robert Downey Jr. with long red hair. I just wasn't expecting to see it, and then we started a podcast, so it was bad timing overall. But yeah. So
both fans of the news, since we're talking Marvel, we're both fans of the Robert Downey Jr. news. Excited
yes, we
about
are,
it.
which is considered a hot take these days, I think.
I know. Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. Well, we've been away for a little while. How have you been?
Good. I have working internet for the year 2024 now. Yeah, I don't know if this has ever happened to anyone else, but I just don't think about things like upgrading my internet. And so the internet in this house has been the same for the more than 10 years. And it turns out like it was at like 75 megabytes per second or something, which is not good. So like we tried to go live a couple weeks ago, and my internet just wasn't working. So I reached out to Verizon, and I find, okay, like I can pay the exact same amount of money and get a gigabyte of speed. So I feel a lot better now.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
and no lag.
Yeah, I doubt I look better, but like hopefully I at least sound better. I don't know.
You do.
Thanks.
No
I need
lag.
a haircut. Then my hair's getting its Doctor Strange grayness on the side. So.
Yep. I love it. All right. Let's talk about some coaches. I got to get out of Olympics mode and move on to football because I've been worrying about nothing but every other sport in the world past couple of weeks. But we are talking football today. We're talking specifically a super early coaches who feel their seat may be getting a little bit warm. So we're going to separate this by conference. We're going to talk about all 32 coaches, hopefully, and breeze through a couple of the ones who we feel like their seats are pretty solid grounds there.
Yeah, some better than others.
Yeah, and we'll start off with one of those coaches who's the Ravens head coach, which is the Harbaugh brother who's been in the NFL for a long time. That's Mr. John Harbaugh, who has been there since 2008 with the Ravens specifically. And in his tenure with the Ravens has went 160 wins and 99 losses. I think his seat is pretty solid there.
Do you know where he was before the Ravens?
Oh, every time we get this question, I think I know the answer. Philadelphia?
That's how I know I'm turning into my father, because we would be listening to something in the car and he'd be like, who is this?
Yeah.
And it was one of like three answers, mostly AC/DC. And when I'm watching someone in the NFL and he goes, and not an Eagle, he goes, where'd he go to college? It means the answer is Notre Dame. So that is truly how I know I'm turning into my father. But yeah, John Harbaugh is a really good coach, and he's, we only have, I think, 5 guys highlighted on here that basically we don't view
super solid.
Yeah, like they're just not going to get fired unless something like catastrophic happens.
Yeah.
Like I'm not even going to speculate because I feel like I'd get a little too ridiculous. And but yeah, so John Harbaugh is going to keep his job. The Ravens are probably going to be a good football team. Lamar Jackson is coming off his second MVP season. So yeah, a lot to be excited about in Baltimore.
Yeah, and he's ridden the wave with Baltimore. Way highs and way lows, and they're on a high. He's not losing the seat.
Very true.
And then we move on to someone whose seat has been kind of warm for a little bit now, to be honest, and that's Bills head coach Sean McDermott, who's been with the team since 2017 and has a record of 73-41. Noticeably, the lack of performance in the playoffs and not having much to show for his tenure there.
Yeah, the last 3 seasons they've lost in the divisional round, even though they have won their division the last
Mhm.
4 years. They lost in the conference championship the year before that. But yeah, it's one of those things. I'll always go back to Andy Reid with the Eagles because that's the thing that
Mhm.
I can relate most to. But everyone knew he was a great coach. Everyone knew he was going to get another head coaching gig the second that the Eagles fired him. But it's really just about something isn't working and we need to try
Yeah.
something else. And I think that's how I feel about Sean McDermott
Yeah.
when it comes to the Bills, where if he gets fired, I think it's going to be that type of move where they're very well most likely going to get, 11, 12 wins. They'll probably win the division. But it's all at this point a matter of like, are they going to show enough improvement in the playoffs that there's any hope that this is ever going to move in a positive direction, because Josh Allen is not going to be Josh Allen forever,
No.
especially with the way that he plays football in general.
Yeah.
Don't foresee him being Tom Brady in terms of his longevity. So, yeah, I really like Sean McDermott. Do you
Mhm.
know where he was before he was with the Bills?
I feel like this one might be a trick, but I'll just say Philly because that's usually the answer.
Carolina. But
Mm.
before that, he was in Philly. He was a defensive coordinator.
Mhm.
Yeah, the Bills. The flip side of that is I feel like their roster has taken a step back from last season.
Yes.
So that's what's probably the scariest part about all of this.
Mhm.
And the thing that is maybe the most worrisome about Sean McDermott's job security is the fact that he's going to have to do a much better coaching job this year than maybe in a couple years past, just to be where he was.
I agree. And I think they tried a tourniquet on the situation when they got rid of Ken Dorsey last year. Was last year the first full year without him? Or did they fire him mid-season? Am I a year? They fired him in season last year.
Yes. See, now I don't know. Is that true? Did you look it up?
No, but I'm 99% sure I'm right on that, but for some reason my brain's trying to tell me I'm wrong.
Well, we're going to find
Am I
out. I
right?
think you're right.
Okay. I think they fired him mid-season last season. I think that was a try to stop the bleeding, right? Like we're not having
Yeah.
success.
He
It
got
was when
fired
they were
last
in a
year.
bit of a slump. He had that big outburst in the booth, and I think that was a solution to kind of stop the bleeding for a little bit. But I don't know that the team ever truly stopped bleeding. They just performed a little bit better. There's a lot of internal struggles with players last year. Noticeably, the issues that Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen had often. And I think I don't want to put the entire reflection of that upon a head coach, but I think that factors into it, especially with key like marquee players trying to keep everyone happy. And you've seen players do it where they complain on the internet and make weird posts about not getting enough catches, and coaches try and keep them happy. And I'm not saying you sacrifice your entire game plan to do so, but I don't know that Sean McDermott was able to intervene as much as people may have hoped. And the team took a step back and tried new offensive coordinator, and things still don't seem to be clicking. And none of them are getting any younger. So I do think he should be a little bit worried for his seat.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. All right, on to the Bengals head coach, who you always had strong feelings about, which is Zach Taylor, who's been there since 2019. He is 37, 44, and 1 in that stint.
Yeah, I have always had feelings about him. Obviously, last year was kind of a, you kind of just throw it away kind of year. They finished fourth in the division. Granted, it was a really good division, but it was mainly due to the injury of Joe Burrow. How that was handled was a little weird overall, but just generally speaking, you kind of just throw it away and you move on. I've never really been the biggest fan of Zach Taylor. I do think that in recent years he's won me over a lot more than he had in his early time as a head coach.
Okay.
That being said, he's very close to being, we have the highlighted green ones as the ones like John Harbaugh, where I just kind of doubt they're going to get fired. Given that Burrow was injured last year, I think it would take a lot to fire him this year with Burrow coming back from injury, where it's like, even if the year is kind of a letdown, they're a very patient organization, generally speaking. I mean, what's his face was there for like 20 years and didn't win a playoff game. I'm pretty sure is the case. Was his name Marvin? Why do I want to say his name is Marvin?
I don't remember.
No, it's Lewis. Marvin Lewis. That is his name. Okay, cool. It didn't sound right. But yeah, so I don't really think he's going to get fired unless it's somehow very disastrous with Joe Burrow, but I just kind of don't see that being the case either. Although the T. Higgins situation is definitely something to keep an eye on. But, you know, I do consider him fairly safe and not really in danger of losing his job.
Yeah, I don't have too much more to add. I think nothing last season makes an impact here. And I don't know that I almost feel like you kind of give him a fresh start, right? Like start him out on a new slate. So I consider him like pretty high up there in safety. But there were troubling things from his past. So I think that you have people who will keep an eye out on that. But I consider him very safe, and I don't have too much more to add on that one. Next is Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski, who's been with the team since 2020 and has a middling record of 37-30.
Yeah. Last year, made the playoffs for the first time since 2020, which was the year that Baker led them there.
With their backups quarterback.
Yeah, with Joe Flacco. And that's that's the weirdest thing about this is this is a dysfunctional, or it has long been a dysfunctional organization. Yeah. However, since Andrew Berry, do you know where he was before he was with the Browns?
Where?
Philadelphia Eagles. You're right. Took over as the GM. They've been very stable. I believe that coincided either the same year, maybe the year after, of Kevin Stefanski getting hired. That being said, the one thing that has thrown a wrench in that is the fully guaranteed contract for a Mr. Deshaun Watson, and all of the issues surrounding that. We don't need to relitigate them here, but
quite literally,
to me, the Browns of old, I could see them if things don't work out this year. If Deshaun Watson is disastrous, I can see them firing Kevin Stefanski because, well, we're already paying Deshaun Watson. When in reality, I think most people would probably agree it's probably not Deshaun Watson. It's probably not Kevin Stefanski's fault. I don't know if he's the solution, but I don't think it's his fault either. However, I don't know, new look Cleveland Browns, save for what they did with Deshaun Watson, maybe makes me think that Kevin Stefanski is fairly safe and the front office might realize eventually that they made a mistake and not punish Kevin Stefanski for it. You don't see that happen all that often in the NFL. Head coaches and GMs are probably the two most disposable people at the top of the hierarchy in an organization. Quarterback, just because of the way that the cap works and the way that you're paying these guys, and there is no cap related to them. It complicates it, obviously, and it makes them a very easy punching bag of sorts or fall guy. But I just get the vibe that Kevin Stefanski's still going to be here a year from now, even if this year goes much worse than they hope.
So I don't think he's as inherently tied to his quarterback situation as another coach on the list that I'll talk about later. But at the end of the day, I feel like any GM, head coach, owner has to look at the fans as almost like stakeholders in their business. And I don't know how, if this Deshaun Watson experiment keeps going poorly, they stick around because they need a scapegoat. And I don't know that scapegoat's ever going to be Deshaun Watson. So I think I think he's fairly safe. I consider him pretty middle of the pack here. But I do have some big hesitancies, and I do think he's a little bit more linked to the Deshaun Watson situation than you think.
That's fair. And I think in most situations, I'd agree with you. I don't know why I get the vibe that the Cleveland Browns are more stable than I should probably give them credit for.
They're the Cleveland Browns. They may be able to put on a good mask, but they're
very
still the
famously
Cleveland Browns.
hate the Cleveland Browns. So I don't know why I'm giving them any sort of benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's Andrew Berry. I like Andrew Berry, but maybe he would get fired. He's the one that did the deal. So I don't know. But that leads us to a very big name on this list.
I don't know about this one.
The Denver Broncos head coach, Sean Payton. I'll let you go.
Yeah. Sean Payton has been there since 2023. In his record last year went 8-9 with the team. And I don't see how they let him go.
Yeah, I agree.
I just don't. Like, you traded for the guy.
Yeah, I always forget they did that.
You traded for the guy. You're not, yeah, that's future capital. That's not money that people can be like, ah, yeah, like, I think you put a little bit more faith in the ability to turn things around. And I think the Broncos as a whole, when Sean Payton took over, had their identity sucked out of them. Like, as a whole, like, they had no identity anymore. They didn't know what they were going to be and what their offense was going to be. And with Russell Wilson and this whole Broncos Let's Ride saga of the Broncos, like, they didn't know who they were at all. And now they have Sean Payton. I think you have to give him credit for trying to, like, rebuild the identity of the offense as a whole, of the organization as a whole, and trying to find their footing again after slipping with that whole ordeal. So I don't see him going. I consider him pretty safe here. I do think they're going to want to see results soon, though.
I would say I don't think they've had an identity since 2015.
Yeah, I agree. 100% with that. But I feel like they were who they were, and then they tried this out, and then, like, that didn't work. I
think they did that a lot
for an identity. Yeah,
I think Russell Wilson was their first big shot at finding an identity since Peyton Manning retired and Von Miller stopped being able to win them a Super Bowl. Basically, he was still incredible, obviously, but they won a Super Bowl and then they didn't make the playoffs. They haven't made the playoffs since. So, that being said, I don't think he gets fired, especially after drafting a quarterback in the first round. Like, he's about as you never know what's going to happen, but he's about as close to, I think, completely safe as I can get other than the guys that we have marked like that, because they drafted his guy in the first round. And
that was his guy. He was sold on Bo Nix.
Yeah. So
pretty safe there then. All right, and that brings us to another guy who's so exceptionally safe. The Texans head coach, DeMeco Ryans, who has been there since 2023 and brought the Texans to a 10-7 record last year, shocking a lot of people in the process.
Not me. No, I was shocked they won 10 games, but I do love DeMeco Ryans, former Eagle.
So good.
A lot of former Eagles on this list.
Yeah, wow.
No, DeMeco Ryans is great. I can't really imagine what the scenario is that gets him fired, other than the Texans organization just being an absolute shit show most of the time. I mean, like, they had 2 one-and-done coaches in a row before hiring DeMeco Ryans. Granted, like, I think that was kind of by design a little bit. And then they made such a big deal about DeMeco Ryans coming home and all that kind of stuff. Like, he's on a different level of being safe, and also he's just really good at his job. So, I don't see a world where he gets fired. I do think there's a world where they regress as a team and people start to what's that hiccup? People start to question it a little bit, but no, I think he's going to be fine.
100%. I think he's like their real hope after that. Like, again, I think the whole one and done experiment was at least mostly intentional. Like, if you stumbled upon someone who you could keep a little bit longer, fine. But like, I do miss Lovie Smith, but like, I think it's fair.
Lovie Smith, low key, did everything for them. He's the reason they have CJ Stroud. Everyone was so angry because he went out of his way to win a game that they didn't have to win and cost them the first overall pick. But there you go.
But
you got
screwed
CJ
over
Stroud out of it.
Bears? Who was it? Yeah.
No, it gave the Bears. Well,
it bumped someone else and then bumped the Bears up. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then the Panthers traded up.
Oh, Lovie Smith. Good job, guy. All right. So on to the next, which is Colts head coach Shane Steichen, who had his first season last year. Oh my God. Could it have been the Phillies? Yes, I know.
Yeah, it was
the Eagles. Who had his first season as a head coach last season and took the Colts to a 9-8 record. And that was without their starting quarterback of Anthony Richardson for the majority of the season.
Just real quick before I actually talk about this guy, like, I want to little behind the scenes. I'm not going to keep making the joke, but the next 2 people on the list are Doug Peterson and Andy Reid.
Yeah.
And this one is Shane Steichen. And where were they each before the current like the Eagles? It's just funny. It's really funny to me. I don't know. It's stupid. It's not even like a good thing. It's just funny. But yeah, Shane Steichen, really, 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 really talented offensive play caller.
Yeah.
He went 9-8 in a season where Gardner Minshew was their starting quarterback, essentially. Which, like, Gardner Minshew is one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league. I think
he knows how to make a hype video. Okay.
Yes. He's probably the starter for the Raiders this year, I guess. I guess that's sort of what it seems like. I think he's the best quarterback on the roster, at least.
I agree, but I also it's the Raiders, and they really may try it out with Aiden O'Connell.
Yeah. Yep. So, that being said, still he went 9-8 with Gardner Minshew as his starting quarterback, and like it's a talented-ish roster, but like nothing crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he didn't get JT until later into training camp or toward the season because of the whole contract holdout. Installing a new offense, Gardner Minshew wasn't ready to start. Well, he's ready to start, but he wasn't the intended starter. It was Anthony Richardson. You built the offense around him. Like he did a really, really, really great job. All of the things considered when coming into that. Now you've got Anthony Richardson, hopefully healthy going into his second year. You've got another year under the belt for a lot of playmakers on the offense. Oh, man. But yeah, so Jim Irsay is kind of insane. And that's why he's not safe.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone ever will be. Even if they happen to keep what's his face, Frank Reich for like maybe a couple seasons too long, and then but then like they hired Jeff Saturday.
But then they course correct. They overcorrect it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, I don't think you could have asked for a better outcome with the cards Shane Steichen was dealt with the Colts. Again, a good roster, but not the best. Definitely key weaknesses. It has a beautiful mind as an offensive head coach, an offensive-minded head coach and play caller. There were often times last season where I sat back and watched the plays he was calling or the risks he took. He was very good about when to take his risks, and doing so calculated enough to know that this is Gardner Minshew and not the guy I intentionally planned on being here. And Anthony Richardson at the beginning of the season was unfreaking believable, like really good. And that's also, or like as much as that is just Anthony Richardson, that's a reflection on a head coach because it's not just one guy out there. And I think I look for key factors too of like players being very content, like not overly pigeonholing your players into situations or making them very one-dimensional. That offense was quite dimensional, even with Gardner Minshew as the starter. I'm very excited to see the Colts this season, and I consider him safe.
Yeah, well said.
All right, on to a quite interesting one, which is Jaguars head coach Doug Peterson, who has been there since 2022 and has an 18-16 record.
Yeah, 9-8 the last 2 seasons. Both of his seasons, he finished 9-8. Won the division in his first year, and then did not win the division or make the playoffs last year, despite going 9-8. Obviously, had a huge comeback win against the Chargers in that first year in the playoffs. Just the most Chargers thing of all time before eventually losing. Yeah, this one's interesting. I think Doug Peterson's a really good coach. I strongly believe that. I've been very consistent about what I think his flaws are, and I don't think he's necessarily doing a great job of hiding those flaws, in which I don't believe he's put a good coaching staff around him in terms of like offensive coordinator and, some other things. Trevor Lawrence just got paid a lot of money, and some people might view that as like well, that kind of secures Doug Peterson. I don't think that's the case. I think it says, just like I talked about earlier, they're not going to cut Trevor Lawrence, obviously.
Yep.
The much more likely scenario if this year doesn't go well is, okay, we've paid Trevor Lawrence. We clearly believe he's a franchise quarterback. We need to get someone to maximize his talents. And if this year goes poorly and they don't think that's Doug Peterson, I would not be shocked to see him get fired. I'm not saying I think that's what's going to happen, but I think by no means is his seat hot, but he's definitely not safe either. Like he is very much like coaching for his job in a very menial, simple kind of way, where it's like the product you put out there is going to decide, in my opinion, whether or not you have a job.
Yeah, I can completely agree with that. I think he valued his friendship with Press Taylor a little bit too much.
Where have we heard that
And
before?
really, really impacted the offense as a whole. And I think their goal was to have this Jaguars team, even if the result was a Bills, I feel like we're having a much different conversation right now. They wanted them there and at least hopeful to contend every year. I don't feel like he's been doing that. And I think, again, this is kind of like, I don't want to consider his seat too hot because I think he's a good coach and it's a good team. And I completely agree with you that the product is going to mean the result for Doug Peterson. So I think the product might be good enough to keep him around, but I think his seat is fairly hot.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't help that you went from a very weak division to like a much more interesting division all of a sudden with the Colts getting Anthony Richardson back. We just said we like Shane Steichen. Obviously, we like D'Amico Ryans. They won the division last year. No idea what's going on with the Titans in reality, but it's interesting. There's a lot of stuff going on in that division where it's not the cakewalk that it's kind of been in recent seasons. Granted, it was the Titans cakewalk for a while, but I mean, they won the division at 9-8 2 years ago. So.
Yep. Yes. All right. That brings us to Chiefs head coach Andy Reid, who's been there since 2013 with a record of 128 and 51 and a handful of Super Bowls to match.
Yeah. So he's not gonna get fired. If he wants to retire, great. Otherwise,
he's on the safe list, the very solid concrete seat I could like to call. He's either like retires or just drops off the face of the earth. Like that's
you want to say die. I
did want to say die. I was afraid you were going to get mad at me.
I mean,
because you're going to be like, yeah, Andy Reid's never going to die. So yeah, so that's the only way he leaves this seat.
No, I agree. Yeah, like maybe there's like a Bill Belichick type thing, like 30 years down the road.
Yeah.
No, he's not getting fired. It's fine.
No.
He's a great. Hey, he's one of the greatest head coaches of all time. So let's move on.
So before we get into the next one, to kick off our first of the rookie head coaches, technically, we'll talk about that in a second. Please stick with us while we give you an ad from our sponsors. All right, and we're back to talk about more coaching seats and who's hot and who's not. And we're starting off with Raiders head coach Antonio Pierce, who is technically a first-year head coach. That is, though, he did coach 9 games with the Raiders last season and went 5-4. As an interim head coach, in which he ignited some sort of flame in that Raiders facility, and they were smoking cigars and hanging out and out there on the picket line for Antonio Pierce to return as a full-time head coach this season.
This could go a lot of different ways. I don't know how I feel about this, to be honest. I meant to look this up beforehand, but I wanted to look up interim head coaches that got hired because it's not many. But all that being said, he could do really well and then things could go well.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see this team being good.
No.
They don't have a quarterback. Not really. They have Gardner Minshew. But again, like I think that took all of Shane Steichen's brain power, and also the Colts have a better roster than the Raiders. Like, generally speaking, I just don't think it's going to be a good season for them. So then it comes down to like one of a few things, which is really like, okay, to me, Antonio Pierce is he's like the vibes hire. He's like a CEO head coach. I don't think he's calling plays. I don't know that one.
A personality hire.
Yeah, personnel. What I always call myself this at work. What's the other word? A morale hire. Like I don't do much work, but like I keep smiles on people's faces, and I make sure that they want to, not die every day at work. Like I think that's kind of my job, really. And I do believe that he's more useful than I am, obviously. But like part of being a morale hire at the NFL level of a head coach is you got to keep that locker room in good spirits. You need to keep this team fighting. And that's what they were doing in his 9 games as an interim head coach.
When they had nothing to lose.
Exactly. So that's where it gets really, really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Because if things go to shit, I think he loses his job. The Raiders are not a stable organization. They do not make coaching hires just willy-nilly. Like, they do whatever they want most of the time.
Is there odds on Bill Belichick coming in at some point this season as a head coach?
So yeah, that's the thing, is I don't know. I think there's a really decent chance he gets fired by the end of the season or at the end of the season, because I don't think the season's going to go well in terms of wins. I think Devontae Adams already maybe kind of wants to leave and
trying to keep it on the down low.
Yeah, except he's not. And it's like,
he's doing that thing where he's really public about it. And then he's like, I never think those things. I never said those things.
Yeah.
My thing is, so many head coaches have talked about it in their memoirs, in their interviews, about how there's such a weird, fine line in being an NFL head coach, that these are grown men and you can't overly police them, because this isn't college. This isn't high school. These are grown men. This is their job. They're here to do their job, but also still keeping everybody in check enough to work together. And I don't know if somebody like an Antonio Pierce can do that, because again, they were all on the same page and all on these high vibes, because Antonio Pierce was doing it as an interim head coach and not expected to do that. And they had fun. And I don't know that you can keep up the fun in the Raiders organization to do something to keep everybody in that room happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm looking at a list of interim head coaches over the past. The Raiders in 2008 elevated Tom Cable to be their they did it in September, to be their interim head coach, and he coached for another season or two after that. Doug Marrone lasted for a couple years with the Jaguars. Mike Mularkey only lasted one season as the Titans head coach. So it's not uncommon it's uncommon for an interim head coach to get hired then as the full-time head coach. Once that happens, it's not uncommon for them to not last long. And I think that is kind of a little bit expected.
Yeah.
Sort of there's not a success story there. And I think that probably is for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
They were a coordinator more than likely on a bad team that got the head coach fired. Yeah. It's just, I don't know, the maths to me.
Yeah.
So I don't have high hopes for Antonio Pierce and his time with the Raiders. So
I'll put a couple bucks on Bill Belichick being the head coach at the end of the season.
I wouldn't take that bet, but
all right, on to another rookie head coach. I know there's not too much we can say about this. There's not a lot of evidence to say how they will be as an NFL coach. But it's theories and history and stuff. But the next one is for the Los Angeles Chargers, who hired the other Harbaugh brother, and that would be the Jim one.
Yeah, he won't get fired. He was the hire. I mean, again, unless something disastrous happens, Urban Meyer level of disaster would have to happen. And even then,
kicking the kickers.
Yeah. And I just can't see that happening, because Jim Harbaugh has had success in the NFL.
Yeah.
So he'll get fired eventually, because they'll get tired of him.
It's just not going to work out.
But yeah, it's just not going to
not yet.
So yeah, he's
agreed.
Fine.
On to the next, which is Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel, who's been there since 2022 with a record of 20-14 with a team who has signed their quarterback to a big, big, big extension.
Yeah, I think he's pretty close to entirely safe. He's good at his job. He's a very good offensive mind, and I think that he has unlocked a lot of parts of Tua. I think they built this offense around him.
Yeah.
More so sort of than Tua. So I think he's pretty safe, again, bearing something disastrous.
Yeah, I agree. I do think I think he's going to have a lot of questions to answer if this team can't win a playoff game, get a little bit further in playoffs. He's going to have a lot of questions to answer. I don't think he's fired, but I do think that is going to be when he should start to worry about his future. I don't think it would happen this season, but that his seat will get warm if they cannot perform towards the end of this season.
Agreed.
Next is another rookie head coach. That would be Patriots head coach Gerard Mayo, the Bill Belichick disciple, written in stone that he was going to be the Patriots head coach.
The second head coach for the Patriots in this millennium.
Yeah.
So
insanity. Really, and my one thing here is I'm just really intrigued to see, because they feel torn on their messaging. Like, their messaging of Gerard Mayo between, like, this is the Bill Belichick disciple, like, this is him, like, everybody meet him, and also, like, this is the new way of the Patriots, like, everything is new, this guy's new, like, pick one. So I feel like I'm a little torn. I'm very intrigued. I have literally no thoughts on how it's going to work. I have not read up enough about Gerard Mayo. I'm sure they'll keep him because it was written in stone that he'd be here, and the Patriots are not one to make rash decisions.
Agreed.
But I feel like they really need to narrow down their PR strategy here, because which one is it?
I think they're used to like not needing to
have a PR strategy.
I don't think they had like a PR department before when Bill Belichick was the head coach, to be honest. Like,
probably
it
not.
was for a while it was just Gronk.
Yeah.
And then it just like didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. But yeah, he'll probably
their entire PR department was like answering questions like, why was he so not telling us enough in a press conference? And the answer was always like, that's just Bill.
Yeah, and people
the PR department just sent out a mass email that said that's just Bill, and then
that was
now
it.
That
was it.
On to yes. All right. So this is the one I wanted to talk about when I was talking earlier about head coaches being linked with their quarterbacks, and that would bring us to Jets head coach Robert Saleh, who's been there since 2021, has an 18-33 record, and noticeably was a crucial element in helping build the team around Aaron Rodgers, who lasted 3 plays.
I think it was 4.
Four. 3 plays, 4 plays, a possible vice president
almost
running, almost more weird ayahuasca stuff. I don't know. So that's what he signed up for. And Robert Saleh has not been able to produce results. The guys he's had have not been the guys he's hoped and kind of, I don't want to say vouched, because I know he was part of those discussions, but was instrumental in taking on. And I think his success is so incredibly linked to Aaron Rodgers this season.
Yeah.
When he comes back. And I don't think I think his seat is very hot.
Oh, yeah. I think his seat has been hot since his first season, really. Like, regardless of whether or not it kind of should have been, like with the whole Zach Wilson thing, the defense has been pretty solid, if not really good, since he's been there. Obviously some weird stuff going on right now with Hassan Reddick. Really funny stuff as an Eagles fan. Just like really wacky stuff, posting pictures in Japan when he's supposed to be in mandatory training camp. Very funny. But yeah, no, I agree. I think if this year doesn't go well, Aaron Rodgers more than likely retires or moves on or whatever, and you can rob Saleh, and at that point you're just kind of giving up. I think with Aaron Rodgers being how old he is and the situation that he's in, like, you don't really want to just start a new head coaching thing right now. So I understand why he's still there. I do think generally he might be a good head coach, but I agree. I think he's tied to however Aaron Rodgers goes, whether or not that's right.
Yep. He's put out a lot of messaging, Saleh anyway. I don't know if it's orchestrated, but that he intends to be more like hands-on in the whole on the team this season. He was very, very hands-on with that defense, but wants to be a little bit more well-rounded and instrumental with the offense as well. I don't know if that's a ploy to be like, see, I did the good part. Like, I don't know what you want me to say. I think it is. He every chance you get this season, you should be aware with these coaches who are on hot seats to look for that messaging, because they will try and sneak it in there. It's their own internal PR team trying to vouch for themselves, and I think that is part of that. I'm intrigued to see if he gets involved there, but keep an eye on that, because he's going to say things like that all season. Like, you know, this defense, they're going to ask about offensive questions and they say this defense like that I work with every day. You know, you got to watch out for that this season. But Saleh's Tushies a little warm. We got our last two in the AFC, and that would be Steelers' Mike Tomlin, who has been there since the dawn of time, 2007, and has gone 173-100 with 2 ties. And he now has 2 new quarterbacks.
He's the only person on this list with a tie with his current team.
No, there was someone else.
Where?
Sean McDermott, Zach Taylor.
Oh, I can't read. Okay.
Yeah.
Sick. All right, yeah. No, just can't read. Sean McDermott doesn't. Zach Taylor does.
Zach Taylor does, yeah.
Can't read. All right. Yeah, I don't know what to say anymore about Mike Tomlin. Like, it's just they're gonna maybe go 9-8, probably. Russell Wilson and Justin Fields is like, if you're kind of building a Madden team and like maybe it'll work and it's like it'll be fun to play as them if you're playing Madden because they can kind of run a little bit, but like
it'll be like so frustrating too, though.
Yeah, I don't see a world where like this. If he like goes to a Super Bowl, sick. Awesome. Honestly, sign him another 20-year contract. I don't even care. But like otherwise, I don't know what it'll take to fire him at this point.
I know. That's my thing. His seat seems safe to me because like he may have to commit murder to like get out of this seat. I genuinely don't know. Because they're okay with it. The Steelers are fine with it. They're like, yay, like another 9-8, another winning season. Like, thanks to our fans. Really proud of you. I don't know. Do what you're gonna do, whatever. Yeah. Also, like, what the heck is going on over there? Like, he's like, yes, it's Russell Wilson, and then everyone in training camp is like, it's literally only Justin Fields. He's like, it's Russell Wilson.
It'll be fun.
Cool.
It'll be fun to watch.
Excited to see that one. Another one I personally don't have much to say, and that would be Titans' new head coach Brian Callahan, because it's the Titans, and it's gonna be
Yeah, let's see what happens.
Meh. It's the best way. All right. Let's move on to the NFC. That would start with the Cardinals head coach. Do you know where this one's from?
Yeah, he was with the Philadelphia. I hate him.
Okay.
I hate him.
Yeah.
I hate him. We literally left him in Arizona.
Yeah. So
the stupid sod father.
Yeah. So we have Cardinals head coach
I should feel worse about that, but honestly, I think he committed war crimes. So
we have the Cardinals head coach who is in his second year. That would be Jonathan Gannon, who the Cardinals did collusion to get. And he went a staggering 4-13 last season, looking to redeem himself.
He is 94 years old. The sod father. But I don't feel bad.
Do you have opinions on Jonathan Gannon?
Yeah, tons of them. He's so bad at being a defensive coordinator. Also, just one of the weirdest dudes in the NFL for sure. Pew, pew, pew. So what do you, what? Like just like
painful.
Yeah, what was the thing? The quote is, people said it so much it almost got unfunny, but it still wasn't. Where
I know exactly what you're talking about.
If you wake up and like you want to, I don't even know what it was.
It's like set on fire or something.
Yeah, just the stupidest stuff. I don't know. The team was like kind of maybe better than they probably should have been last year. They beat the Eagles. That sucked. Did they beat the Eagles? I'm pretty sure they did. Pretty sure. Yeah, that was part of the collapse. I don't know. Is he safe? Like maybe. I don't know. I don't think they're going to be good. But also, you get Marvin Harrison. Like it's probably a better team than they were last year. But I don't really know what to make of that. I hate Jonathan Gannon. I don't think he's a good head coach. But I think there's a very real chance that he still has a job at the end of this year. And I'll just leave it at that, I guess.
Yeah.
But also, like, he can go fuck himself. So.
Yeah, I think I found the one that's like, he's asking him, it's a video, who drove over here, who took the bus? There it is. Did you have fire in your gut?
Yeah, fire in your gut. Yeah,
fire in your gut.
God, and it was just
he's so monotone and has zero emphasis. The delivery
is so bad.
Drives me freaking bananas. All right. The next would be 2 back-to-back rookie head coaches. We'll start off with the Atlanta Falcons, who did the world a favor, rid us of Arthur Smith, and gave us Raheem Morris.
Yeah, he's not going to lose his job, I don't think. Just everything that happened, like between like Kirk Cousins and the weapons on offense and Michael Penix Jr. and all that kind of stuff, like it's just very bizarre. And I don't think that Raheem Morris is going to be a one and done head coach, partly because I think he's a good coach, and partly because I think that he's just going to, like, I just don't see a world where they fire him unless, again, like an Urban Meyer level thing. Like, I just think he's going to be good enough. I think the team is talented enough that also they hung on to Arthur Smith for as long as they did. So
that's my thing. I think the Falcons are fairly rational. I think they put a little bit of faith where they shouldn't have, but I would consider them fairly rational. And like a stable organization. Yeah, I think that's the best word. They're stable. Like they're good. They're fine. Like I think he'll be a good coach. Actually, I'm very excited to see him coach. Next is Panthers head coach Dave Canales. His first year with the team. Yikes! It's the Panthers. Congratulations.
Whatever. They are he could be one and done. He could lose his job after 9 games.
Absolutely.
Like
absolutely.
If we're talking unstable owners, like whatever the crap his name is, I don't remember what his name is.
I don't even remember his name right now.
But yeah, he's a mess of a human being, and he could. Yeah, Dave Canales could lose his job after 5 games because it's a bad team and a bad owner
situation.
Yeah,
like I would not want to walk in that building.
No, me either.
I don't like. I understand people like want a head coaching gig. I don't think you want that one on your resume currently.
No,
I think that hurts you more than it helps you.
I think that's very likely, yeah.
All right, we move on to the Chicago Bears, who've had their head coach since 2022. That would be a guy named Matt Eberflus. He has gone 10-24. You want to talk about like little dorky guys who'd have like no emphasis when they speak? That would be Matt Eberflus. He's from that Jonathan Gannon type personality mold, but ask around the league, and his seat is pretty hot. What do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be. It's very bizarre that he's kept his job through this. Like, I don't think he's particularly bad, but I don't think he's good either. Yeah, it's just the way that I don't know. You have the first overall pick. You're drafting a generational talent in Caleb Williams. Like, that just screams, get me a new head coach. Get me a really exciting head coach, and they didn't do that.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, I think it's really likely that he could just be fired after this season. And I think what I was saying with Doug Peterson, where what he does is going to determine whether he has a job or not. Like, I think Matt Eberflus is kind of one of those guys that's like kind of got in the short end of the stick, where it's like he could kind of impress us but still get fired.
Still won't be enough.
Yeah. Like, I don't think it's a guarantee. Like, there have been who was it? Was it Josh McDaniels? I think everyone was like, oh, he's going to get fired. Like, there's no doubt in our mind. It's just a matter of when. There was one that was even more likely. And I don't remember who in recent years. There was one that was like, we're all just wait. Like, yeah, I don't remember who it is. I can't remember.
For sure, Josh McDaniels. Like, when the season started, we were like really surprised he even made it to the first game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think he has to like well exceed expectations to have a chance at staying, and even then, I think it's tough. I agree. I'm kind of the mindset that you bring in this generational, once in a lifetime type talent, as it's touted to be, and you keep this guy. Like,
yep, people
would have been lined up out the door to take this opportunity, and there is so. You and I had this conversation last season. Around this time, we had our coaching episode talking about the amount of talent at that just one step down at the coordinator position, who we think could be incredible. And you keep this guy? Like, I'm in the mindset you should have just reset. And like, you have Caleb Williams now, you have this team, and they've built a stacked wide receiver room. They made improvements on the roster, and I just don't know. I mean, I know they made offensive changes. They fired Luke Getsy. They hired Shane Waldron. I'm excited to see Shane Waldron in the position. I think he can make real progress with the offense with Caleb Williams. But I think it has to be off the charts good for this guy to have a job.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And we can both be very wrong, but that's how we feel.
Yeah. You want to talk about another one who I think should I'm surprised makes it to week 1. That would be our dearly beloved Cowboys head coach, Mike McCarthy.
He should be the head coach forever.
Ever and ever. He has been with the Cowboys organization since 2020. He has a 42-25 record. Those numbers are misleading because they sound like they're pretty decent, right?
He's won 12 games in the last 3 seasons, which is the first time that the Cowboys have done that since 1993 to 1995. And yet,
nothing to show for it.
Nothing to show for it.
Literally
Really
nothing.
bad. Really just horrible stuff.
Like, how many playoff wins? One.
I believe one. Yeah,
One.
because they lost in the wild card twice, and they lost in the
Yeah.
division round once, but
One.
they didn't have a first round
Yeah.
bye. So
Yep. One playoff win in
Yep.
that time with the quarterback who you expected to be the Cowboys quarterback, the guy, right?
Yeah.
The guy who still doesn't have it is the best
Good
the way
rosters,
I will
too.
describe him forever. Great roster, sensational talent, an incredible defense, incredible drafting, and you have one playoff win.
Let's not say incredible drafting.
Okay, I'm not going to say. Okay, I mean
way
like
too much credit.
I mean, some really good picks. Micah Parsons, great pick,
Yeah.
works really well with their
They
offense.
got
I don't
really
want to say
lucky,
incredible
yeah.
drafting all around, but some really good picks here and there that have
Yeah.
helped to impact. That defense has been very good.
Yeah.
And you have one play. How does this guy have a freaking job?
No one knows. No one knows. Even if you just ignore all of the other crap that goes along with Mike McCarthy and this Cowboys job and all of that stuff, like, yeah, it just. I don't know how you keep him after that Packers loss in the playoffs. I
God.
truly don't get it. That was by far to me the most shocking non-fire.
Yeah, we sat for like 3 days. Like, oh, it's definitely they just had to like have their meetings and stuff, right?
Yep.
Like,
And
I
nope.
still feel of that mindset. Like, oh,
Yeah.
we're just waiting to get the next guy, right?
Like, seemingly Nick Sirianni was closer to losing his head coaching job.
Yes.
And he was in the Super Bowl 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But hey, Jerry Jones, you're doing a great job. Please just continue running
Keep
that
eating
franchise into the absolute
Egg McMuffin
ground.
or whatever.
Yep.
Keep eating your Egg McMuffin up in your high tower and giving us this product of Cowboys because we truly enjoy it. Keep them forever. I hope they're just going to stay bad. No one on that team has it anymore.
Go Birds.
Can't. All right. Before we get into our next head coach, we'll start off on a high note when we come back. But for the meantime, please listen to a message from our sponsors. All right, we'll start off on a high note with someone who is in one of those concrete seats, at least for right now, in my eyes, would be the Lions head coach Dan Campbell, who has been there since 2021 with a record of 24-26 and brought the Lions to the playoffs for the first time in our lifetimes.
That's not true at all.
I mean, what stat am I thinking of?
Winning a playoff game?
Yes, that's what I meant. Sorry. That's what I meant to say.
Two very different things, to be clear.
My bad.
Like, they were in the playoffs in 2016.
Yeah, so you know what I meant to say. Winning a playoff game in our lifetimes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, that is true. Yeah, their last playoff win was in like the 60s or something. I forget.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's fine.
Yeah.
I know we have him as one of our green people.
Mhm.
I feel like there's a couple other guys that I would probably put above him that aren't currently in that tier. I don't really know why I think that. I think that he's probably not as good of a head coach as some people think he is. And I think that he has less control over the outcome of his team's success than a lot of these other guys do. Like, I think you could take Dan Campbell away and I don't think the team would fall apart. Where, like, if you took Kyle Shanahan away, if you took John Harbaugh away, if you took Andy Reid away, like, those are very different conversations. I don't think Dan Campbell is that level of head coach.
Yeah.
I think he's like the ultimate, like, that's what you want Antonio Pierce to be. The ultimate vibes head coach.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I do think you've talked extensively about how sometimes it feels like he big brains himself into these decisions that, like, contrarian decisions to go for it when really you shouldn't have, or vice versa. And I feel like that could get him in a little hot water, but he's very safe for the time being, at least.
I tend to agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Next is Packers head coach Matt LaFleur, who's been there since 2019, has gone 56-27. I think he's probably a green guy for me, but
yeah, he's fine. They just signed Jordan Love to like, I think he's safer than Dan Campbell. Like, they're both very safe, but yeah, Matt LaFleur is going to be fine.
Yeah.
He made, like,
I had my doubts with Matt LaFleur at first, but I've really come around on him.
No, I agree. I
didn't love it, and I like, even as a person, like I feel like he's grown a lot in the role. And I feel like I've come around on him a lot lately. But I don't have too much to say. Dude, what they did last year was crazy. No one expected that.
It was like the youngest
not Texans level, but like still insane.
I think it might have been. I think there's a chance it was more impressive than the Texans, personally.
I think it might have been more impressive, but I think it was less unexpected. Like the Texans for me was more unexpected.
Got it. Less surprising.
Yeah.
You went with less unexpected.
Yeah,
I just want to be very
double
clear
negative.
about. I really want to
double negative myself.
Yeah. Let's move on to another guy.
All right, another great guy, very safe, who has one of those dies or retires, and he's very young. Rams head coach.
Yeah.
Rams head coach
retiring
Sean McVay.
Much more likely.
Yeah, Sean McVay, who has been around since 2017, 70 and 45 record, and a Super Bowl to show for it.
Yeah, he's still an absolute. He's a child and doesn't know how to go for it on fourth down or be aggressive in any manner whatsoever. And he should not have won Coach of the Year in 2017. But other than that, he's done a great job.
Yeah, he has had plenty of outward conversations with media about how he's contemplated this job for like 2 years now.
Yep.
Since the Super Bowl win, really is like he started being more open about how long he wanted to stay around and starting to have his doubts. So I don't doubt that we may get a retirement, move to media, or like partial retirement, maybe come back somewhere and he'll be later. But
he's on the John Gruden career path at the moment.
Yeah.
Hopefully without the firing for bad emails later on.
Yeah, that would
essentially
particularly be helpful. But yeah, he's safe until he decides to retire. The Vikings are next with Kevin O'Connell, who's been there since 2022 and has gone 20-14.
Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion on Kevin O'Connell. I think they won 13 games in 2022, and that was really good. And then they lost Kirk Cousins, and they went 7-10, and they weren't as good. They also didn't have Justin Jefferson for like half the season. So I don't think he's going to lose his job. Yeah. I think he's fairly safe. I don't know what to think of him as a quarterback. And I think we're going to learn a lot more about, or as a quarterback, as a coach, I think we're going to learn a lot more about him and what he brings to the table this season with either Sam Darnold or JJ McCarthy.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I could change my opinion very greatly one way or the other.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is just like a see it. I don't know. Like, you got to just see it through for now and see what comes of it. I don't really have too many strong feelings. Next is ask around pretty hot seat. That would be the Saints head coach Dennis Allen, who's also been there since 2022 and has gone 16-18 in that stint.
Yeah, and he was the defensive coordinator for a long time before that.
Yeah.
I don't really get why he's there. The Saints are a mess of an organization that have no idea what they're doing. Should he get fired? There's kind of two sides to it. I don't think they've put together a good team. Mm-hmm. So should he get fired? It's probably not his fault.
No.
But I don't really see what you gain by having him there. I think you know exactly who he is, and I don't think he's a guy that's really putting you over the edge. I think he's a really good defensive coordinator, and I think this is probably his last and only chance maybe to be a head coach, and I don't think it's going to end particularly well because it's a really bad situation. But will the Saints actually fire him? I have no idea because I don't think they have any clue what the direction of their franchise is, and they have not had any clue what the direction of their franchise is since Drew Brees and Sean Payton were a pair. So I don't think he's a great head coach. He's probably not the main problem, but it doesn't mean he's the solution either.
I agree. But I think my real issue comes from the fact that you had real opportunity when the NFC South was what it was, right? It was anyone's game and you still couldn't compete. You put up numbers. His year.
They went 9-8, but
that's what I'm saying. His regular season stats aren't terrible, but the division was there for grabs, and you couldn't grasp it. And I think that is a knack on him.
Agreed.
Next is my near and dear to my heart Giants, and that would be their head coach Brian Daboll, another one who's been there since 2022, and he has gone 15-18 in that stint.
Whoo, baby! I think his seat is hot. I don't know if it should be
very hot
necessarily, but I think I have not watched. I have only seen clips of Hard Knocks.
Me either. I was waiting till it was all out to finally watch it.
I would like to watch it. I think he might quit. Honestly, wouldn't shock me if he quit. Every clip, he does not seem happy.
I think about that week to week. Like, do I quit the job of being a fan? I could only imagine it as a head coach.
You're more than welcome over here.
No. Never in a billion years.
Except you like Loki kind of cheer for the Eagles. You don't hate us nearly as much as you should.
I hate the Cowboys more.
Yeah. But like there's the disdain I have for the Giants, and I never let up on it. You let up on your disdain for the Eagles.
I think it's because I like the people. Like I really love Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, it sucks when we're likable. And you guys, the most likable player that you have had is now an Eagle. And now Malik Neighbors doesn't even like your team. So
Janiel Dones. Janiel Dones. I'm gonna call him that the entire season. It's never gonna leave. I don't know that I know his real name anymore. All right, my thoughts. So Giants had like a real Black Tuesday at the end of the season with coordinators and support staff. They fired Wink Martin. Well, fired the whole like telenovela saga of Wink Martindale running away to Florida and like refusing to have a conversation with anyone. Wacky. Now not with the team. They fired the special teams coordinator, the offensive line coach, the linebackers coach, the defensive assistant. It was on a Monday. It was like a Black Monday. So they were bad and like they had to do something about it. And I don't think you let go of Daboll. I think it's a different story if they grabbed a quarterback here because I think his job would feel pretty secure in that aspect. Now, because he's still fairly new to your organization. You're drafting a quarterback. You've seen the progression that that they had with Josh Allen, and you say, all right, we have a quarterback. Like we have one. That what does he have to show to be here? Malik Neighbors hating the quarterback. Literally, somebody's like, I'm watching film from. I don't remember whose tweet it was. Said I'm watching film from all 32 camps, and all I see is 31 teams impressing and Daniel Jones sucking.
I saw that too, and I don't remember who it was. Why do I want to say it's Matthew Berry, but I could be wrong.
I don't know who it was. I remember seeing it, and then I swiped because I didn't want to see it anymore. But I think this organization is entering another realm of restarting, of hitting the refresh button, and I think that's why I feel like his seat is hot. It was
Matthew Berry.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, can you read it word for word for me?
Yes, I can. My timeline is nothing but really nice training camp plays from 31 NFL teams and bad passes from Daniel Jones.
There we go. Cool. Awesome. So, yeah, I feel like the organization is entering another refresh mode. Not like a full revamp, but we are all the time.
I know.
But
I remember.
So, yeah, we're doing fantastic. I don't think he's a bad coach. The team is bad. Also, like, he sometimes makes me angry, but
it's fair.
It's not as bad as a QB sneak in your own.
I hate that, man.
But
hate him.
What are your thoughts on Brian Daboll?
I don't think it matters because the organization is trash and it's just like really bad at making decisions pretty constantly. So
yeah,
and I legitimately do not think Brian Daboll likes being there.
No.
So. No. And I
need to watch Hard Knocks.
I think that matters.
I need to watch Hard Knocks. I wanted to wait till all the episodes were out before, so I could just like binge watch it and get it all at once. All right, on to more from this division. The Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni, who's been there since 2021, went 34-17, has made it to the Super Bowl, and notably had plenty of conversations about his possible departure at the end of last season.
Yeah, I mean, you start the season 10-1. You think after a year after going to the Super Bowl, you think there's no possible way that this dude is losing his job. And then you finish the season the way you did in an absolute embarrassing collapse. And it's got you questioning everything. There are a lot of reports, and I think this is more just Philadelphia than anything, about what was Nick Sirianni's fault? What wasn't his fault? What's his relationship with Jalen Hurts like? Like, honest to God, it's the same exact stuff that I read about Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson. So the bright side is Jalen Hurts is Jalen Hurts, and I think Nick Sirianni is Nick Sirianni. He's taking a step back from the offense. Maybe that's not exactly what you want to hear, but I believe in the hires that we made. We got Vic Fangio, which I do believe. I've said before, the best advantage in the NFL is having an old curmudgeon-y defensive coordinator who's not going to leave to become a head coach. Kellen Moore, I think, is going to be a really good offensive coordinator. I like everything I'm hearing out of camp. I think Howie Roseman has put together an awesome roster. So, yeah, I do believe that Nick Sirianni very much is going to coach his way in or out of a job. Yeah. And I do think it's that simple. Another collapse like last year, and it's over. I think that the Eagles have one of the most stable situations in the entire NFL because Howie Roseman seemingly can't lose his job. And I think a lot of people hated that for a while, and then he was able to turn it around. And also he's able to make moves in a way that other GMs can't because he knows he has job security. And I think that helps the head coach. But another collapse like that, Nick Sirianni is going to be out. However, if the season goes well, I think he's in. I do think it's that simple. So,
yeah. And I don't think it's Super Bowl or bust. I just think it's,
I agree.
I think it's, you have to perform. You have to be there. Like, you have to be in the playoffs. You have to make a run. But I don't think it has to be Super Bowl or bust. I think you have to show that this team isn't capable of that again. Like, be invincible to a collapse like that, and Nick Sirianni is good to go. I don't care if it's weeks 1 through 8 or the middle of the season or the end of the season. There can't be a slump like that for this Eagles team. Not in how competitive the NFL is and how ever-changing it is. And you have your guys signed to contracts now. Like, make the most of it. And so I don't think they can experience a 4-5 game slump under his tenure. I think that's when you start to get really questioning on Nick Sirianni. I think the fact that they questioned him at the end of, like, very openly questioned him at the end of last season, hopefully, I think will light a fire under him. And I think just shows, like, the expectations. I think if it was Super Bowl or bust, those conversations wouldn't have been had. I think the organization still has faith in Nick Sirianni, but they just expect more out of the team. And
it was unacceptable
because of that, Nick Sirianni. Yeah.
If he, and I think I said this, like, if he had gotten fired, I wouldn't have been. I like Nick. I think he's a good coach, and I didn't want to fire him. But I think if they had fired him, I would have been fine with it because I think I trust Jeff Lurie, and that collapse was awful. So but
I'm gonna rearrange our orders here just a little bit. We've been in the NFC East, so I'll just finish us there before we move on to the last couple. That would be not first time, but like first year head coach with the Commanders, Dan Quinn.
Yeah, I think he's a great defensive coordinator. I think he was good with the Falcons. As a head coach. So I think this is going to be interesting. The Commanders are under new ownership. This is their first head coaching hire. They obviously just got Jaden Daniels at quarterback, so he's not going to lose his job. I think he's got a couple years under his belt. And then I think things will get interesting because that we're going to know more about the direction of the organization. Right now, there's just so much new that I would be shocked if he lost his job.
Completely agree. And I think talking to anyone in the NFL who's had experience with Dan Quinn, everybody loves him. Like, his players love him, the media love him. I've gotten to chat with Dan Quinn a little bit. He was amazing when I got to talk to him. Really personable guy, and I think that's needed in an organization that is another one that's like trying to figure out where they are right now. After so long of not knowing, you have new ownership, you're trying to build new stadiums and new coaches and new quarterbacks, and it's a throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And I don't think Dan Campbell falls from that. I think he's going to stick to the wall for now, at least.
Yeah, agreed.
Last of our rookie head coaches would be Seahawks head coach Mike McDonald.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Me either.
I don't think. I guess he's probably not going to lose the job.
Where is my grandpa?
Yeah,
Where is my grandpa?
Weirdly athletic grandpa.
Where's my grandpa? Who chews
Both
the
my
gum?
grandpas are dead, and they died before the age that Pete Carroll currently is. So I can't relate to having a grandpa that's that in shape.
I have one left.
Yeah, but he also goes to the Final Four every year. That's much more relatable to the Pete Carroll situation.
He does run too, so
yeah, I don't even run. Yeah, they're pretty like I don't think he loses his job because they're a stable organization, and it doesn't seem like something that they would do.
I also think it's interesting though because I mean you have Geno Smith, but if Geno Smith keeps being meh, like then the organization may.
But you just traded for Sam Howell.
If the organization chooses to like, I don't know. I don't think Sam Howell is the future.
I think he's better than Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones.
Exactly. He's better than him too.
Daniel and Daniel. All right. I'm gonna add. I have two more. We'll start our last two with the head coach of the Buccaneers, Todd Bowles, who's been there since 2022 and has an even, clean record of 17-17.
Yeah, this is a really weird situation because
he
took over for Bruce Arians. He got 1 year with Tom Brady the last year, and then he went with Baker Mayfield. He actually had a better record with Baker Mayfield than he did with Tom Brady. So that was weird.
Yeah.
And he won a playoff game.
Yeah.
Against the Eagles. Yeah, me too. So I don't know. It's just a weird
Taylor
thing.
Heineke?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I don't think he loses his job, but I have no idea what my expectations are for that team. They're pretty middle the entire way. So I think they'll be fun to watch sometimes.
Yeah. And
like
then
Evans
other times really want to pull your hair out.
So that's good.
Yeah, I would say
probably be great.
I would say it's one to like keep your eye on, just because like I don't think his seat's hot, but like I don't know that he has a seat. Like I don't know where
that is the best way to describe it. It does not feel like he has a seat, and I mean that in a very respectful way.
We love you, the Hubbles.
Yeah, I do.
Big fan. All right, and let's end with Kyle Shanahan, who's been there since 2017, has a 64-51 record. Couple of playoff wins to show for it, but not much more than that.
Yeah, I mean, no Super Bowls wins.
No Super Bowls.
Lost 2 or 3. I forget how many. Yeah, he's not going to get fired.
He won't get fired. I think questions start to arise if they can't seriously contend for a Super Bowl.
Even then, I think I mean, if they lose their division and they come in 4th place and there's no big injuries, like that's questions. You still give them another year, but like
I think he's here for next year anyway. But I'm just saying, I think they start saying like, okay, what is happening here?
Yeah, I don't even think that. So like what I'm saying is like if you lose in the first round of the playoff, I think barring coming in last in the division, he is 2 years away from being on a hot seat even because of his track record and what he is. And he's a guy kind of like Andy Reid where it's like he'd be snapped up in a half a second.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a great game manager. I have my beef with Kyle Shanahan. I think he's a great offensive mind and not a good coach.
Yep.
Which is fine. But it does not translate to a
he's
Super
like
Bowl.
A game planner. He's not as much as a game manager as he is a game planner.
Yeah, and a good play caller, generally speaking.
Yeah.
But again, he's not. I don't think he's a good head coach. I think he's a really, really good offensive mind. But like that is worth its weight in gold because he's a top 3 offensive mind. So like, he's not.
I don't want to be mistaken. Like I don't think he's getting fired. I don't think he gets fired next year. But I do think there will be like organizational changes where they're really going to evaluate support staff a lot more thoroughly if this team can't seriously contend for a Super Bowl. I think you do have to start looking at it and saying, can Kyle Shanahan do it? Or like, what can we give him to do it? You know, like I think that's the way it leads first. And then we start to maybe see a decline. But I do think I personally want to see him just be a little bit better. Like I know he's so good and he has such a beautiful mind, but like just a little bit better.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. Okay. That's the coaching hot seat to start the season. We will talk about this later on, obviously, as coaches probably get fired mid-season, and their seats get hotter or colder as the season goes on. But that about wraps it up. Duncan, can you let us know where we can find you?
You can find me hopefully watching Joel Embiid playing USA basketball, clawing my eyes out watching the Philadelphia Phillies, even though they're still the best team in baseball. And that's pretty much it. There's not a ton going on. I guess watching the preseason.
Okay.
Because
I'll
do that
game tomorrow.
Well, maybe not the Hall of Fame game. They're not even pretending that anyone's going to play in it. So, probably not, to be honest. But
and on Twitter.
Yeah, at mpduncan75 on Twitter. Okay. Thank you.
You can find me streaming every sport in the Olympics and watching Scott Hansen because I just love hearing his voice all the time. And he's running the red zone for the Olympics. And it's been a truly remarkable experience for me, as in someone freaking loves the Olympics. So that's where I'll be. You could find me on Twitter at Ashley_Marie with 2 A's and Ashley. You can find me and Duncan here, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday nights. I know we'll address it. We've been a little MIA, a couple of bouts with a chronic pain and life events, but we're back. We're on track. And we have plenty of content to get to you before this season starts to really ramp up. We'll talk to you about some. If you are a viewer who is a casual fan and missed a lot of big news this offseason, we'd love to talk to you about it. If you are an avid fan, it was hard to keep up with the news this offseason, so we'll get you caught up next week. We hope to see you here to join us. In the meantime, if you want to get caught up on any of our old episodes, you can find us on wherever you listen to your podcasts. Until then, we hope to see you here next Wednesday, and we hope you have a lovely night and a lovely week.
Go Birds.
Bye.